A food truck? My sister Amanda's laughter echoed through our parents' expansive dining room. Oh, this is rich. Little Sophie's going to sell tacos out of a truck. I stood my ground, clutching the business plan I'd spent months perfecting. Around the mahogany table, my family's reactions ranged from amusement to outright disgust. We sent you to Cornell School of Hotel Administration, my father said, his voice tight with disappointment. And this is what you want to do with that education. My brother Michael, fresh from his MBA, couldn't contain his smirk. Dad, don't worry. She'll come crawling back to the family restaurants once she realizes how ridiculous this is. The Martinez family restaurants, 5 upscale establishments in prime Manhattan locations, each more pretentious than the last. My father had built the empire from nothing, true, but somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten his roots. The simple, authentic Mexican food that had originally made his name had been replaced by $50 deconstructed tacos and avant-garde interpretations of traditional dishes. I want to bring back real food, I said firmly. Food that reminds people of home, of family. Food truck food reminds people of food poisoning, Amanda cut in. She gestured to her designer dress. Some of us have standards to maintain. My mother, ever the peacekeeper, tried to intervene. Sophie, darling, why not start as manager at one of the restaurants? Learn the business properly. I know the business, Mom. I've worked every position since I was 16. But I want to do something different, something authentic. Authentic? Michael scoffed. Our restaurants are featured in Michelin guides. You want to serve street food to drunk college students? I pulled out my phone, opening the photos I'd taken during my research trips across Mexico. Look at these lines of people waiting for street tacos in Mexico City. Look at the joy on their faces. That's what real food does. It brings happiness, not just Instagram posts. My father stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. Enough. If you want to embarrass this family with your little food truck fantasy, don't expect any help from us. Not a penny. I don't need your money, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I've saved enough from working at the restaurants, and I have a plan. Oh, this should be good, Amanda sneered. Do tell us your brilliant strategy for changing the world one food truck taco at a time. I took a deep breath. I'm starting with one truck, yes. But I'm combining traditional recipes with modern technology. I've developed an app for mobile ordering, real-time location tracking, and a loyalty program. The food will be authentic, but the experience will be cutting edge. Michael burst out laughing. An app? For a taco truck? Next, you'll tell us you're disrupting the burrito industry. Actually, I pulled up my beta testing results. Early trials show a 40% increase in customer retention with the app, and an average order value 25% higher than traditional food trucks. But they weren't listening anymore. They never did when it came to my ideas. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of my newly renovated food truck. La Cocina Rodant, the rolling kitchen. It had cost most of my savings, but it was beautiful. Gleaming steel, professional-grade equipment, and a bold, colorful design that caught the eye without being tacky. My first employee, Rosa, arrived early that morning. She was in her 50s and had worked as a line cook at one of my father's restaurants for 20 years before being let go when they modernized the menu. Está hermoso, she said, running her hand along the counter. Just like the food trucks back home. Think your family recipes will work here? I asked. She smiled, pulling out a worn notebook filled with handwritten recipes. Mind ya, these recipes fed 3 generations. They'll work anywhere. Our first day was chaos. The lunch rush hit hard, with curious office workers drawn by our social media campaign. Rosa's authentic tacos al pastor were a hit, but our ordering system crashed twice. I spent that night debugging the app, determined to get it right. By the end of the first week, we had regulars. By the end of the first month, we had lines. Your cilantro lime sauce is legendary, a customer told me one day. My whole office talks about it. That sauce was Rosa's secret recipe, passed down from her grandmother. We served it with everything, and people couldn't get enough. 6 months in, we had 3 trucks operating in different parts of the city. Each one had its own dedicated following. The app was working perfectly, letting customers track their favorite truck and order ahead. Then came the call that changed everything. Ms. Martinez? The voice was professional, crisp. This is James Wilson from Venture Capital Partners. We're very interested in your operation. I almost dropped my phone. VCP was known for turning small food businesses into national chains. Your integration of traditional Mexican street food with modern technology is exactly what we've been looking for, James continued. Would you be interested in meeting to discuss expansion opportunities? That meeting led to our first round of funding, $2 million to develop what would become Casa Auténtica, our first brick-and-mortar restaurant. The location I chose was deliberate, just 2 blocks from my father's flagship restaurant. You're making a mistake, Michael warned when he heard. Fast casual Mexican food? There's no market for that in this neighborhood. But he was wrong. On opening day, the line stretched around the block. People waited 2 hours for Rosa's Tacos, now served in a bright, modern space that still maintained the warmth and authenticity of our food trucks. The reviews were overwhelming. Finally, real Mexican food in a convenient, modern setting. The app makes ordering so easy, and the food tastes like my abuela's cooking. Best tacos in the city, hands down. Within a year, we had 5 locations across New York. Each one carried Rosa's recipes, each one maintained our commitment to authenticity, and each one was powered by our now patented ordering technology. Then came the profiles in food magazines, the features on cooking shows, the requests for franchising rights. I kept every mocking text my siblings had sent, every dismissive email, every sneering comment about my little food truck experiment. They weren't sneering anymore. One morning, as I was reviewing plans for our 20th location, my assistant came in looking uncomfortable. Ms. Martinez, your brother Michael is here to see you. He says it's important. I looked up at the empire I'd built from a single food truck. The wall of awards, the glowing reviews, the financials showing our growth exceeding all projections. Send him in, I said. It was time to see who was embarrassed now. Michael looked different from the last time I'd seen him. His designer suit seemed less crisp, his confident swagger replaced by an uncertain shuffle. He stood in my office doorway, taking in the view of the Manhattan skyline behind my desk. Nice office, he managed finally. Better than Dad's. What do you want, Michael? He sank into one of my visitor chairs, running a hand through his hair. The restaurants, they're not doing well. I pulled up the industry reports on my tablet. I already knew this, of course. I monitored every aspect of the food service industry, including my family's struggling empire. Dad's still refusing to adapt. I asked though I knew the answer. He says authentic Mexican food is beneath our brand. Meanwhile, we're losing customers too. He gestured vaguely around him. This. Casa Auténtica had grown to 50 locations across the country. Our revenue last quarter had exceeded $100 million. The Wall Street Journal had just profiled me as the woman revolutionizing fast casual dining. And, I prompted, I need a job, he blurted out. The restaurants, we're going to have to close 3 of them. Dad's not listening to reason. Amanda's already jumped ship. She's working for some fusion place in Leh. I leaned back in my chair, remembering his words from 2 years ago. What happened to me crawling back to the family restaurants? He flinched. Sophie, I was wrong. We were all wrong. What you've built here, it's incredible. It's just a food truck empire, I said mildly. Nothing as prestigious as your Michelin-starred establishments. Stop, he leaned forward. I know I was horrible to you, but I'm here now, admitting I was wrong, asking for help. I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the street where one of our food trucks was parked. The lunch line already stretched around the corner. You know what the secret is, Michael? Why we succeed while Dad's restaurants fail? He shook his head. Because we never forgot what food means to people. It's not about prestige or Instagram posts. It's about connection. Every recipe we serve has a story, a family behind it. I pressed a button on my desk. Rosa? Could you come in, please? Rosa entered, now our executive chef and head of menu development. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Michael. You remember my brother, I said. The one who thought food trucks were beneath him. Rosa crossed her arms. I remember when he told your father to fire me. Said my cooking was too rustic for the new menu. Michael had the grace to look ashamed. I was wrong about that too. Rosa's cilantro lime sauce, I told him the one you called peasant food. We sell it bottled now. It brought in $5 million last year alone. I've learned my lesson, Michael said quietly. I'll start anywhere. Prep cook, dishwasher, whatever you need. I exchanged looks with Rosa. She gave a small nod. Actually, I said, we do have an opening. We're launching a training program for new franchisees, teaching them our recipes, our values, our way of doing things. We need someone who understands both the business side and the importance of staying true to authentic cuisine. Hope flickered in his eyes. You trust me with that? No, I said flatly. Not yet. You'll start as a trainee yourself. 3 months working in our trucks, learning every recipe, every process. If Rosa says you're ready after that, we'll talk about the training program. 3 months in a food truck? He looked at his expensive suit. Take it or leave it. He stood up and extended his hand. When do I start? Right now. I handed him a company uniform. Rosa's truck is parked outside to show you how to properly dice onions. After you left to change, Rosa turned to me. You're kinder than I would be. It's not kindness, I said. He needs to understand what makes us different, what makes us better. The next few months were a transformation. Michael learned every recipe, every technique. He worked harder than I'd ever seen him work. His designer clothes were replaced by chef's whites. His manicured hands became calloused from chopping and cooking. One evening, I stopped by Rosa's truck toward closing time. Michael was teaching a new employee his grandmother's proper technique for making tortillas by hand. The dough has to feel alive, he was saying. Cada tortilla tiene su historia. Every tortilla has its story. Rosa nudged me. He's ready. The training program was a success. Michael had a way of connecting with new franchisees, helping them understand that success wasn't just about profits. It was about preserving the soul of our food while embracing modern innovation. 6 months later, I called another family meeting. This time, in my office. My father arrived first, looking older than I remembered. The closure of his remaining restaurants had made headlines in the food world. Amanda came next, her LA job having ended badly. She couldn't quite meet my eyes. I suppose you're enjoying this, my father said, staring at the wall of awards. Watching everything I built crumble while you succeed. Actually, I said, that's why I called you here. I laid out my proposal. We would buy his remaining restaurants, but not to close them. We would transform them into high-end versions of Casa Autentica, keeping some of his innovations while returning to authentic roots. You want to turn my life's work into glorified taco stands, he demanded. No, Dad, I want to save your life's work by reminding people why they fell in love with your food in the first place. Michael stepped in, still wearing his chef's whites. She's right, Dad. I've learned more about our culture's food working in her trucks than I ever did in our restaurants. The Martinez name still means something, I continued. But it should mean quality and authenticity, not just high prices and fancy plating. My father was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he asked, and what role do you see for me in this new venture? Executive Chef Emeritus, I said, working with Rosa to develop new recipes that honor our heritage while appealing to modern tastes. No more deconstructed tacos. He actually smiled at that. Your mother always said those were pretentious. Speaking of Mom, Amanda interjected, she's going to love what you've done with the place. She looked around hopefully. Any chance you need a marketing director? You'll start in the trucks, Michael, and I said simultaneously. 1 year later, we celebrated the opening of Martinez Heritage, our new high-end concept restaurant. My father and Rosa worked side by side in a kitchen, creating dishes that combine traditional flavors with modern presentation. Amanda, having paid her dues in the trucks, headed our marketing department. Michael led our franchise development program. The first item on the menu? Street tacos served exactly the way they are in our trucks. The night before the opening, I found my father standing in the kitchen, looking at an old photograph now hanging on the wall. It showed him at 25, cooking at his first street cart in Mexico City. I forgot, he said softly. Somewhere along the way, I forgot what made the food special. We all lost our way a little, I replied, but we found it again. Through a food truck, he chuckled. Who would have thought? I looked around at our empire, now the largest Mexican restaurant chain in the country, with over 200 locations. Every single one started with the recipes and values we developed in that first truck. Sometimes, I said, the best way forward is to remember where you came from. The next morning, before the restaurant opened, I drove our original food truck, now restored and retired except for special occasions, to park in front of Martinez Heritage, a symbol of how far we come and a reminder of how we got here. Rosa's granddaughter, now one of our head chefs, took a photo of all of us standing in front of it. The whole family, plus Rosa and her family, all wearing our Casa Autentica uniforms with pride. From food truck to fortune, Amanda mused. You should write a book. Maybe, I smiled. But first, let's make some tacos. Because in the end, it was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving that success doesn't always look the way people expect. Sometimes it comes from a humble food truck, authentic recipes, and the courage to believe in your vision even when everyone else is laughing. And sometimes the best revenge isn't in proving doubters wrong, but in showing them a better way, one taco at a time.